Is your bathtub stopper stuck? Don't replace it yet. Have you ever pulled up your bathtub stopper and realized it won't come back down? Or maybe it won't stay closed anymore, so your tub slowly drains while you're trying to take a bath. At first, it seems like a small problem. But then you start searching online and see people talking about replacing drain assemblies, removing plumbing underneath the tub, or calling a plumber. Before you know it, you're convinced this little stopper problem is going to cost hundreds of dollars. And in many cases, that's exactly what happens. I've seen homeowners pay $200, $250, even more, for repairs that often take less than 5 minutes. After years of working on bathroom fixtures and drain systems, I can tell you something surprising. Most bathtub stopper problems aren't caused by broken plumbing. In fact, the culprit is usually a simple issue hiding in plain sight. And in many cases, you can fix it yourself with nothing more than a screwdriver and a few minutes of your time. Today, we're going to look at why bathtub stoppers stop working, the hidden causes most homeowners never check, and the simple fix that could save you an expensive service call. And make sure you stay until the end, because I'll also show you the maintenance trick plumbers use to keep tub stoppers working smoothly for years. To understand the fix, we first need to understand why tube stoppers fail in the first place. Most homeowners assume something has broken inside the plumbing. Maybe a pipe came loose, maybe a part snapped, maybe the entire drain assembly needs to be replaced. But surprisingly, that's usually not the case. In fact, most bathtub stopper problems are caused by a few very simple issues. And the biggest one is something every bathtub deals with every single day: hair. Think about what goes down your bathtub drain. Hair, soap, body oils, shampoo residue, skin cells. Over time, these materials begin accumulating around the stopper mechanism. Little by little, they create resistance. The stopper starts moving less smoothly. Maybe it sticks occasionally. Maybe it doesn't seal properly anymore. Maybe it gets harder and harder to pull up or push down. Because the change happens gradually, most homeowners don't think much of it. Until one day, the stopper simply stops working. And that's when the panic begins. I've seen people assume they needed an entirely new bathtub drain assembly, when the real problem was nothing more than a clump of hair wrapped around the mechanism. The second thing many homeowners don't realize is that tub stoppers contain moving parts: springs, threads, pivot rods, linkages. These parts move every time you use the bathtub. Eventually, things can loosen, shift, or become misaligned. The good news? Most of these problems are surprisingly easy to fix. And in many cases, you don't even need replacement parts. You simply need to identify which type of stopper you have, because not all bathtub stoppers work the same way. And that's where many homeowners get stuck. They try fixing the wrong mechanism entirely. Before you grab a screwdriver or start taking things apart, there's one question you need to answer first. What type of tub stopper do you actually have? This may sound obvious, but it's where many homeowners make their first mistake. I've seen people spend an hour trying to remove a stopper that simply twists off. Others pull so hard on the drain assembly that they end up breaking parts that weren't even damaged to begin with. The truth is, not all tube stoppers work the same way, and the fix depends entirely on the type you have. The most common type is the lift and turn stopper. You pull it up, twist it, and it locks into place. Another popular style is the push-pull stopper, which simply moves up and down. Then there's the toe-touch stopper, which opens and closes when you press it with your foot. And finally, many older bathtubs use a trip lever stopper, which operates through a lever located on the overflow plate. Each one uses a completely different mechanism, and each one fails for different reasons. The good news is that most problems come down to one of three things: hair buildup, a loose connection, or a part that's simply out of adjustment. Remember that you can find a complete guide to save over $5,000 in the QR. Take advantage of it. I've seen homeowners buy replacement kits, call plumbers, and even consider replacing their bathtub, when all they needed was a simple adjustment that took less than 5 minutes. So before assuming the worst, take a moment and identify your stopper type, because once you know what mechanism you're dealing with, finding the problem becomes much easier. And speaking of problems, there's one culprit responsible for more tub stopper failures than anything else, and it's probably hiding underneath your stopper right now. After years of repairing bathtub drains, I can tell you that one thing causes more tub stopper problems than almost anything else, and it's probably sitting underneath your stopper right now. Hair. Now, I know that sounds almost too simple, but you'd be amazed how much trouble a little hair can cause. Every time you shower, strands of hair travel toward the drain. Most of them don't immediately wash away. Instead, they get caught around the stopper mechanism. Then soap residue enters the picture, body oils, conditioner, shampoo. All of these materials act almost like glue. Little by little, they wrap around the moving parts and create a sticky mass that begins interfering with the stopper's operation. At first, you might notice the stopper feels slightly stiff. Then it starts opening more slowly. Maybe it doesn't seal completely anymore. Maybe it refuses to stay open. Or maybe it gets stuck entirely. Because this buildup happens gradually, most homeowners assume something inside the plumbing is broken. But many times, the real problem is sitting right on top of the drain. I've removed enough hair from bathtub drains over the years to fill several trash bags, and in many cases, the homeowner was convinced they needed a plumber. One customer actually thought her entire drain assembly had failed. The stopper wouldn't move properly, and the tub drained slowly. After removing the stopper, I pulled out a clump of hair about the size of a tennis ball. The problem was solved in less than 3 minutes. That's why the first thing I always check is what's hiding underneath the stopper, because sometimes the repair isn't really a repair at all. It's simply cleaning out years of buildup. The good news is that removing most tub stoppers is much easier than people think, and once you know how to take yours out, you can often find the problem immediately. Now for the good part. Before you call a plumber or order replacement parts, let's actually look underneath the stopper, because this is where many homeowners discover the problem almost immediately. The exact removal process depends on the type of stopper you have. If you have a lift and turn stopper, pull it into the open position and look for a small set screw near the base. Loosen it, and the stopper usually lifts right out. If you have a push-pull stopper, many models simply unscrew by turning the knob counterclockwise. A toe-touch stopper often unscrews by hand after placing it in the open position. And if you have an older trip lever system, you'll need to remove the overflow plate and carefully pull out the linkage assembly. Don't force anything. That's one of the biggest mistakes homeowners make. If a stopper doesn't move easily, stop and inspect it first. Applying too much force can damage the threads or bend parts that were perfectly fine. Once the stopper is removed, look directly inside the drain opening. This is usually the moment homeowners are shocked. You'll often find hair wrapped around the mechanism, soap scum, black sludge, even small objects like jewelry, razor caps, or hair ties. I've seen drains so packed with buildup that the stopper could barely move at all. And the funny thing is, many of these problems look incredibly serious from the outside. The stopper won't close, it won't open. The tub drains slowly. Everything feels broken. Then you remove the stopper and realize the entire problem was caused by a handful of hair. Sometimes the simplest inspection reveals the biggest answer. But what if you remove the stopper and everything actually looks clean? That's when we move to the second most common cause of failure, a loose or misadjusted mechanism. And fortunately, that fix is usually just as simple. If you removed the stopper and didn't find a giant clump of hair, don't worry. The second most common problem is actually even easier to fix. The stopper may simply be out of adjustment. This happens all the time. Remember, your stopper moves every single day. Up, down, open, closed. Over the years, small components can loosen, shift, or move out of position. And when that happens, the stopper starts behaving strangely. Maybe it won't stay closed. Maybe it won't stay open. Maybe it closes halfway. Or maybe it feels loose and unresponsive. I've seen homeowners assume they needed an entirely new drain assembly when all they really needed was a simple adjustment. For lift and turn, push-pull, and toe-touch stoppers, the fix is often as simple as tightening the center screw or rethreading the stopper properly. Sometimes the stopper has simply backed itself out over time. A few turns by hand can completely restore normal operation. Older trip lever systems are slightly different. These use a linkage and pivot assembly hidden behind the overflow plate. If the linkage becomes misadjusted, the stopper can sit too high or too low. The result is a stopper that never seems to work correctly. Fortunately, many of these systems include adjustment points that allow you to shorten or lengthen the linkage. And surprisingly often, a few small adjustments are all it takes. I once had a customer who was prepared to replace her entire bathtub drain. The stopper wouldn't stay closed, and she assumed something had broken inside the plumbing. After removing the overflow plate, we discovered the linkage had simply slipped out of adjustment. The repair took less than 5 minutes. Her total cost? $0. And that's what makes bathtub stoppers so deceptive. The symptoms can look serious, but the solution is often incredibly simple. However, there is one situation where cleaning an adjustment won't solve the problem, because sometimes a part has actually failed. And there are a few warning signs that tell you it's time for replacement instead of repair. The good news is that most tub stopper problems can be fixed with cleaning or a simple adjustment. But not all of them. Sometimes a part has actually failed. The trick is knowing the difference. One warning sign is a stopper that feels completely loose. You lift it, push it, twist it, and nothing happens. That's often a sign that a screw, spring, or internal mechanism has broken. Another clue is visible damage. Cracked plastic, stripped threads, bent linkage rods, severely corroded metal components. I've seen older stoppers where years of moisture and soap exposure simply wore the parts out. At that point, no amount of cleaning will solve the problem. A replacement is usually the better option. Fortunately, replacement stoppers are often inexpensive. Many universal models cost between $15 and $30. And in many cases, installation takes less than 10 minutes. Compare that to paying a plumber $200 or $250 for a service call, and you can see why learning these basic repairs can save homeowners a lot of money. But here's something important. Many people replace parts that never needed replacing. I've seen homeowners spend money on new stoppers only to discover later that the real problem was still a clump of hair or a simple adjustment issue. That's why I always recommend following this order. First, clean the stopper. Second, check for adjustments. Third, inspect for broken parts. Only then should you consider replacement. And if you want to avoid most of these problems entirely, there's one simple maintenance habit that professional plumbers swear by. Here's a simple trick that can prevent many stopper problems before they ever start. Once a week, remove any visible hair from the drain opening. That's it. It takes less than 30 seconds. Most hair-related clogs don't happen overnight. They build up little by little. A few strands today, a few more tomorrow. Then soap residue starts acting like glue. Months later, the stopper begins sticking. By spending half a minute each week removing visible debris, you can dramatically reduce buildup around the mechanism. Another smart investment is a simple drain hair catcher. They cost only a few dollars and can prevent huge amounts of hair from reaching the stopper assembly in the first place. It's one of the cheapest forms of plumbing maintenance you can do, and it can save you from future repairs entirely. So if your tub stopper suddenly stops working, Don't assume you need expensive plumbing repairs. Most problems come down to one of three things: hair buildup, a simple adjustment, or a worn-out part that can be replaced in minutes. Before spending $250 on a service call, take a few minutes to inspect the stopper yourself. Remove it. Look underneath. Check the mechanism. You might be surprised by how simple the problem really is. Sometimes the repairs that seem complicated are actually the easiest ones to fix. And sometimes 5 minutes of inspection can save you hundreds of dollars. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe for more homeowner plumbing tips, and let me know in the comments. Has your tub stopper ever stopped working? And what did you find underneath it?